There comes a moment in every man's life when something just snaps. For me, it was when Amanda, my wife of 12 years, gave me an ultimatum in front of all our friends. Get in line or get out. 6 words that shattered the facade of our perfect marriage. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. My name is Robert Wilson, I'm 39, and until 4 months ago, I believed my role was to be the understanding husband who accepted everything in the name of love. That night changed everything. I chose to leave. And for the first time in years, I took a deep breath. It wasn't an impulsive decision. The marriage had been dead for a long time, but I was the only one keeping up appearances. As I drove away from the house we shared, I didn't feel regret, only an immense relief. Like a weight I had been carrying for years without realizing how much it was bending me over was finally off my shoulders. We met at a corporate retreat in Colorado, 13 years ago. Amanda was ambitious, smart, and had that smile that lit up the room. We worked in different departments in the same company, me in IT, her in marketing. Our connection was immediate. I want to build something extraordinary, she told me on the night we talked until dawn, sitting by a lake. A career, a family, a life that's worth living. We married after 10 months of dating. Our first years were intense. 2 promotions for her, a new job for me, buying the house. We had a clear plan, build our careers, travel the world, and then, at 35, start a family. It all seemed perfect. And it was, for a long time. Weekend dinners with friends, vacations on deserted beaches, endless talks about our future. We were in sync like 2 gears in the same machine. When we decided to try for a baby, Amanda got pregnant pretty fast. We planned everything, the room, the names, even the school. But in the 11th week, we lost the baby. Amanda suffered a miscarriage during an important presentation. She came home from the hospital and, 3 days later, was back at the office. I need to stay busy, she explained. I respected her process. People deal with grief in different ways. But weeks turned into months, and I realized we weren't processing that loss together. I tried to talk. We can try again when we're ready, I suggested one night. Now's not the time, she replied without taking her eyes off the laptop. The company's going through restructuring. I need to focus. I understood. Or at least I thought I did. Work was her defense mechanism. In time, she would open up. She just needed space. 6 months after the loss, our routine had become unrecognizable. Amanda started coming home later and later. The dinners she prepared got cold in the oven. The conversations about our days turned into monologues that she barely listened to. How was the meeting with the board? I asked one Friday. Good, she replied curtly while checking her emails. Just good? What more do you want to know, Robert? It was just another meeting. Those moments multiplied. The silence grew between us like an invisible wall. Our weekends, once filled with activities together, turned into days of Amanda working while I watched games by myself. Our intimacy disappeared gradually. I tried small gestures, flowers, a surprise dinner, tickets to a show. Nothing seemed to reach her, no matter where she was. I'm tired, became her most common answer when I got close. And I believed her, because I wanted to believe. Because admitting the truth would mean facing the abyss that was forming between us. Then Michael Pearson came along, the new VP of Marketing. At a corporate dinner, I noticed how Amanda's eyes lit up when he was talking. It was the same sparkle that had once been reserved for me. Michael has really innovative ideas, she said on the way home. Finally, someone who gets where the market is headed. In the following weeks, his name cropped up in every conversation. Michael suggested, Michael thinks, Michael believes. Meetings got longer. Messages arrived late at night. Work stuff, she quickly explained. I'm not naive. I saw the signs. The better planned outfits, the new perfume, the phone always turned face down. But I convinced myself it was just professional admiration. After all, we were Robert and Amanda Wilson, the couple everyone envied. Until one night when I caught her smiling at a message. "Michael is so funny," she said, as if that explained everything. I realized then I wasn't just losing my wife to work, I was losing her to someone who made her smile in a way I just couldn't anymore. That Friday, I made an impulsive decision. I packed a backpack, grabbed my tent, and all the camping gear that had gathered dust in the basement for years. I needed space to breathe, to think. The Catskill Mountains had always been my refuge, but in recent years, they had become just another reminder of a freedom I had gradually abandoned. I sent Amanda a quick text. "I'm spending the weekend out. Need to clear my head." She responded almost instantly. Something rare these days. "What?" "We have dinner with the Hendersons tomorrow." I had completely forgotten about that commitment. For a moment, I hesitated. It was just another one of those dinners where Amanda would talk about work while I smiled politely, pretending everything was fine. For more hours of performance. "Sorry. Something came up at work." 3 little dots appeared on the screen for almost a minute. Finally, "Are we really doing this, Robert?" I answered with a simplicity that surprised even me. "Yes, we are." I turned off my phone and drove 2.5 hours to the trailhead. While setting up the tent in the weak light of late afternoon, I realized I didn't feel guilty. For the first time in years, I was doing something for myself, without justifications, without any indirect permission. I spent 2 days hiking the trails, sitting by streams, watching hawks circling in the sky above. The silence of the mountains wasn't like the silence at home, that was heavy with unspoken words. Here, it was peaceful, filled with the small sounds of nature. On Sunday afternoon, I turned on my phone. 17 messages and 7 missed calls. Amanda's last message was simple. "When you get back, we need to talk." There was something freeing in that sentence. Finally, the impasse would be confronted. On the way back, I rehearsed various versions of the conversation we'd have. But when I got home, around 8 in the evening, Amanda wasn't there. Only a note on the counter. "I'm at Diane's. We'll talk tomorrow." Even though I slept in our bed, it felt like I was already in separate territories. The physical distance only confirmed the emotional distance that had been building between us for a long time. The next morning, Amanda arrived while I was making coffee. "So," she began, placing her bag on the table. "Now you just disappear for an entire weekend?" I needed space. And I needed a present husband at the dinner with your important work people. It was always about her work. Suddenly, I realized with crystal clear clarity that I couldn't even remember the last time she asked about my day, my projects, my dreams. "Amanda, when was the last time we really talked? Not about work, not about schedules, but about us." She sighed, as if I were being irrational. "We are talking now, aren't we? And you choose to run off to the mountains instead of telling me what was bothering you. I've been trying to tell you for months. Years, maybe. But you're never really present." I saw something flash across her face. A glimmer of recognition, maybe guilt, but it quickly turned into defensiveness. "Don't start that conversation again. I have been working hard to build my career. You always knew that was important to me. And what about me? About us? Where do I fit in that equation?" She looked at the clock. "I have a meeting in an hour. Can we continue this tonight? We have the Bennetts and the Carlsons for dinner, remember?" Another dinner. Another performance. I nodded, knowing that the real conversation would be postponed once again, pushed into a convenient moment that would never come. Dinner with our friends started like so many others. Thomas and Lisa Bennett, Brian and Diane Carlson, couples we'd known for years. Amanda served that expensive wine she reserved for special occasions, while I prepared the steaks. The facade of the perfect couple was intact. In the middle of dinner, Diane mentioned having seen Michael Pearson and Amanda having lunch together at Riverside Cafe. "You two looked so engrossed in conversation that we didn't even notice," she commented casually. Amanda gave an educated laugh. "Michael is a workaholic just like me. Even at lunch, we talk about work." I felt my face grow hot. Not because of the possible meaning behind that lunch, but because of how easily Amanda had skipped over mentioning it. Another secret, another small everyday betrayal. After dinner, Thomas suggested board games. As we cleared the table, Amanda kept checking her phone, smiling at the screen now and then. Each smile felt like a little stab. During the game, I stayed quiet, watching how everyone interacted. Lisa and Thomas, married as long as we had been together, still exchanged knowing looks. Brian naturally put his hand on Diane's without thinking. Small gestures of intimacy that had long disappeared from my marriage. "Robert, it's your turn." Brian nudged me. "Sorry, I'm a little distracted," I admitted. He spent the whole weekend in the mountains, clearing his head. Amanda commented with a hint of sarcasm, throwing quotes in the air. "Apparently, our marriage is in crisis, and I didn't even know." Silence fell over the room. Our friends exchanged uncomfortable looks. "Amanda, I don't think this is the time," I started. "What time is it, Robert? You run off to the mountains without a word, acting like I'm the bad guy in this story. Maybe our friends should know what kind of husband you've been." Something inside me broke. It wasn't anger, but a sudden clarity. I turned to our friends. "I think we need to end the night. Amanda and I clearly have things to work out." Diane began to get up, but Amanda stopped her. "No, stay. The night is just beginning." Robert is being dramatic, as usual. "I'm not being dramatic," I replied calmly. "I'm tired of pretending that everything's okay when it isn't. I'm tired of being ignored, of being treated like an accessory in your life. If that's dramatic, then yes, I'm guilty." Amanda slammed her wine glass down on the table. "What exactly do you want from me, Robert? That I give up my career? That I stay home waiting for you to come back from work like a 1950s wife? I want you to look at me. Really look at me. I can't remember the last time you asked how my day went and actually cared about the answer." Lisa touched Thomas's arm, signaling that they should leave. "Maybe we should." "No," Amanda shouted. "Since Robert wants to have this conversation so badly, let's have it right now." She turned to me, her eyes blazing with anger. "You really want to know what I think? I think you're resentful of my success. I think you're using my work as an excuse because you can't handle the fact that I'm growing while you're stuck." Her words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they revealed how much she had twisted our reality to justify her distance. "Amanda," I said calmly, "I always supported your career. I always celebrated your achievements. The problem was never your success, but the fact that at some point, I stopped being a part of your life." "That's ridiculous," she shot back. "You are a part of my life. You're my husband." "My husband? Look around the room. Am I your husband, or am I the person holding the house together while you build a separate life? A life that includes secret lunches with Michael Pearson that you don't mention?" Her face hardened. Diane and Brian were already on their feet, clearly uncomfortable. "Come on, Robert," Amanda said, changing her tone. "Our friends don't need to hear this. We're all tired." "No," I replied firmly. "I'm tired of waiting for the perfect moment for this conversation. I'm tired of putting off our lives." Amanda abruptly stood up, knocking over a chair. "Enough. You have two options, Robert. Get in line or get out." The room fell completely silent. Thomas cleared his throat. Lisa looked at the floor. Amanda's ultimatum hung in the air, heavy and definitive. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger. Someone who used my name, lived in my house, but who, at heart, didn't know me anymore. "I think I'm gonna leave," I replied calmly. I spent the first few weeks after the separation at James's apartment, my college friend. He was the one who helped me pack my stuff while Amanda was at work. Clothes, books, photography equipment, my life fit into a few boxes and suitcases. "You did the right thing," James said as we unloaded the car. "Everyone could see you two were unhappy. Only you guys seemed not to notice." The word unhappy stuck with me. Was I really unhappy? Or was I just numb, operating on autopilot in a marriage that had become an obligation instead of a partnership? I started looking for apartments right away. I didn't want to extend my stay with James, even though he insisted there was no hurry. I found a small but nice place about 10 kilometers from the old house, close enough to keep up with work, far enough to avoid accidental encounters. The apartment had a small east-facing balcony. In the early mornings, I'd sit there with my coffee, watching the sunrise. A simple ritual that became an anchor in the chaotic days that followed. I called my brother Nathan, who lived in Austin. He had always been direct. "Finally, man. I thought you'd never realize what was going on." "What do you mean?" "Rob, the last time I visited you guys, it was obvious Amanda was living in another world. We all saw how little she looked at you during dinner." Those conversations were painful, but necessary. Each one confirmed what I'd known deep down. Our separation wasn't an impulsive mistake, but the inevitable end of something that had long since died. 2 weeks after I left, Amanda called. We talked briefly about practical issues, bills, what to do with the house, how to split our stuff. She suggested we meet with lawyers to make the divorce official. "We can do this civilly," she said. "I don't want a messy process." "Me neither," I agreed. It was strange how we could be reasonable now, when we no longer tried to save the unsalvageable. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth. We split our property without major conflicts. Amanda would keep the house, and I'd give my share in cash. We didn't have kids. This old loss now seemed almost like a disguised blessing, considering the path we had taken. I established new routines. I started running in the morning, something I had always wanted to do but never prioritized. I picked up photography again, a passion I'd abandoned in recent years. On Sunday afternoons, I'd walk through the park with my camera, capturing moments, rediscovering the joy of watching the world through a lens. James and other friends invited me into their plans: barbecues, basketball games, poker nights. I realized I had drifted away from many of those connections during my marriage, especially in the last few years when all my energy was devoted to maintaining the appearance of a relationship that no longer existed. At work, I found a new focus. I took on a challenging project I had postponed for months. My boss noticed the change. "What happened to you, Wilson? You look 10 years younger." I smiled, not really knowing how to explain. How do you say that sometimes you lose yourself in relationships, and there's a strange freedom in starting over? At night, sitting on my balcony, I reflected on my marriage. Not with bitterness, but with a clarity that only distance can bring. I realized both of us had failed. Not just Amanda with her distance, but me for letting this situation drag on for so long, for settling into unhappiness as if it were my natural state. One afternoon, while unpacking my books, finally out of boxes after a month in the new apartment, I found our old memory box. Wedding photos, concert tickets, birthday cards. I sat on the floor and went through those fragments of a shared life. There was beauty in those memories, real moments of connection and love. I didn't want to erase them or rewrite them with bitterness. They were part of my history, even if the ending wasn't what I had imagined. That night, I wrote an email to Amanda. I found our memory box today. I'd like you to have it. Not to reopen old wounds, but because I believe we had good moments that deserve to be remembered, even though our paths have taken different directions. Her response came the next morning. Thank you. You were always the keeper of our history. Maybe we can grab a coffee sometime, when it feels easier. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were being honest with each other. 3 months after our separation, I met Amanda at Riverside Cafe, the same place where she used to have lunch with Michael. It was her idea. Neutral enough? She asked in a message. I agreed, although the choice of location seemed strangely symbolic. I arrived first and picked a table near the window. The cafe was quiet that Tuesday afternoon. I watched the door, feeling a mix of anxiety and curiosity. What would it be like to see her now, after everything? Amanda walked in at 3:05 p.m., as punctual as always. She was wearing a navy dress that I'd never seen before and looked relaxed, somehow lighter. Our eyes met and she smiled, not the mechanical smile of the last few years of our marriage, but something genuine, even if hesitant. Hi, Robert, she said, sitting across from me. Hi. You okay? You too. I like your shorter hair. Small observations, like strangers trying to find common ground. We placed our orders, an American for me, green tea for her. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, just reflective. Our divorce was finalized yesterday, she finally commented. I got the papers by email. Me too. I took a sip of my coffee. It's strange, isn't it? How something so significant ends with a few digital documents. She nodded. 12 years reduced to electronic signatures. Actually, most of those years were good, I offered, surprising even myself with the sincerity. I'm not trying to pretend everything was a mistake. Amanda looked at me with an intensity one hadn't seen in a long time. Thank you for saying that. I've been thinking a lot about us since that night. About how we got to that point. And did you come to any conclusions? She hesitated, twirling the cup between her fingers. I think that after we lost the baby, I built a fortress around myself. Work was something I could control when everything else felt uncertain. The mention of our loss, so rarely discussed between us, reopened an old wound that never fully healed. You never wanted to talk about it, I said softly. Talking meant feeling, and I wasn't ready. She paused. I wanted to be strong. For me, for you, for everyone. But that strength pushed you away, didn't it? We both drifted apart in different ways. I convinced myself that giving you space was what you needed when maybe I should have insisted a bit more. I'm not sure it would have worked. I was determined to move on as if nothing had happened. She took a deep breath. But you can't just ignore a loss like that, can you? It finds other ways to make itself known. Like drifting apart from the people we love, I added. She nodded, and for a moment I saw the Amanda I knew years ago, vulnerable, authentic, present. It was a bittersweet glimpse of what we might have preserved if we'd made different choices. And Michael? I finally asked, the question I'd avoided for months. She didn't look away. It started as professional admiration. He was new, bringing fresh ideas to the company. Then he became a distraction, a way to avoid what was happening at home. You too. Not while we were married, she replied quickly. But yes, we've been seeing each other now. It started a few weeks after you left. That confirmation hurt less than I expected. Maybe because I already knew, or maybe because, honestly, it didn't matter as much anymore. You seem fine with that, she observed, studying my reaction. I'm more at peace than I imagined I would be. I paused. I guess deep down, I always knew something was developing between you two, even if it wasn't physical back then. I'm sorry for not being more honest about many things. Me too. I took my last sip of coffee. You know what's ironic? We had to separate to finally have this conversation. Amanda smiled sadly. Maybe we needed the distance to gain clarity. We talked for another hour about our new apartments she had moved to, selling our house, about work, about mutual friends. It was the most genuine conversation we'd had in years, without layers of resentment or unmet expectations. When we said our goodbyes on the sidewalk outside the cafe, she briefly hugged me. I hope you find someone who really sees you, Robert. You deserve that. You too, Amanda. As I watched her walk away, I realized that this meeting wasn't a closure. Our marriage was already over officially, but another kind of reconciliation. Not to rekindle what we had, but to honor what was good and to learn from what wasn't. Walking home, I felt lighter. It wasn't exactly happiness, but a kind of peace. As if I finally had permission to move on, not just legally, but emotionally. 2 months after my meeting with Amanda, Lisa and Thomas Bennett invited me to dinner at their place. Nothing formal, Lisa assured me over the phone. Just some friends and my sister who's in town. I accepted without much thought. These dinners had become a part of my new social routine, a welcome reminder that my life hadn't ended with my marriage. When I got to the Bennett's house, Lisa introduced me to her sister, Sarah. Tall, with short brown hair and lively green eyes, she had a presence that immediately caught my attention. Sarah teaches literature at USC, Lisa explained. She's here for a conference. Literature, huh? What's your favorite period? I asked, as Lisa left us to check on something in the kitchen. American modernism. Hemingway, Fitzgerald, that kind of stuff. She smiled. And before you ask, yes, I'm fascinated by broken people writing beautiful things. Her frankness caught me off guard. I was actually going to ask about Jane Austen, you know. A safe bet for conversation. Sarah laughed. Sorry. Years of teaching have made me a bit cynical about predictable dinner conversation. Then let's try something unpredictable, I suggested. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would it be? Frida Kahlo, she replied without hesitation. And you? Anthony Bourdain. She tilted her head, considering. Good choice. I bet he'd have some amazing stories. During dinner, I learned that Sarah had been divorced for 3 years, had a cat named Fitzgerald, of course, and spent summers hiking in the Pacific Northwest. We talked about books, movies, and places we wanted to visit. I didn't mention much about my recent divorce, and she didn't ask. At the end of the night, while I was helping clear the kitchen, Lisa came over discreetly. Sarah will be in town for another week. Maybe you two can grab a coffee? Are you trying to set us up? I asked, amused. Maybe. She's amazing, you're cool. Simple math. Lisa smiled. Besides, you two didn't stop talking all night. The next morning, I sent Sarah a message, inviting her for a city tour. She agreed, suggesting we meet at the Contemporary Art Museum. We spent that Sunday strolling through galleries, discussing art we didn't fully understand, and then exploring small independent bookstores. It was easy being with Sarah. Her intelligence was sharp but never intimidating, and she had a genuine curiosity about the world that I found contagious. Why do you smile like that? She asked as we walked through the park. Like what? Like you're keeping a fun secret. I thought for a moment. I guess I'm just enjoying the moment. Being here, talking to you, without any expectations or baggage. Sarah stopped walking and looked at me directly. You've been carrying a lot of baggage recently, haven't you? How did you know? Your eyes don't lie, Robert. You have that look of someone who's recently left something behind. I briefly told her about Amanda, about our divorce that had been finalized only 2 months earlier. I mentioned that fateful night, the ultimatum, my decision to leave. Sarah listened carefully, without interrupting. When I finished, she simply said, "Thank you for telling me. It must have been hard to make that decision." "It was, and it wasn't," I answered honestly. "The hardest part was admitting that the marriage had ended long before I actually left. I get that. My divorce was similar." She offered a small smile. "I guess that means we should take things slow, right?" "Definitely." And we did. In the following weeks, we exchanged emails and messages. When Sarah went back to Los Angeles, we kept in touch over video calls. We talked about the books we were reading, shared stories from our days. It was a connection without pressure, born from genuine interest and respect. 2 months later, I met Sarah again when she came for another conference. This time, it felt like we had known each other for years. We dined at a small Italian restaurant, talking until the place closed. When I walked her to her hotel, she kissed me softly. "I'm thinking about applying for a position at a local university," she mentioned casually. "The literature department is expanding." "That would be interesting," I replied, trying not to show just how excited I was about the idea. Sarah smiled, seeing through my attempt at nonchalance. "Yeah, it would be." In the following months, our relationship naturally grew, without schedules or expectations. Sarah got the local university position and moved here 6 months later. We began seeing each other regularly. Dinner dates, Sunday walks, nights watching old movies. What I appreciate most about Sarah is how completely she sees me. I'm not just a part in her life, the boyfriend, the companion, the support. I am Robert, with all my complexities, interests, and imperfections. And she is Sarah, independent, brilliant, occasionally stubborn, absolutely fascinating. A year after our first conversation at dinner, we sit on my balcony, now our balcony, since Sarah moved in 2 months ago. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We're discussing plans for the weekend, maybe a trip to the mountains. "You look happy," she observes, studying my face. "I am," I reply simply. And it's true. It's not the idealized happiness I imagined in my youth, nor the performative version I tried to maintain over the last few years with Amanda. It's something more solid, more real, born not from fantasies or expectations, but from conscious choices and genuine connections. Looking back, I realized that night when Amanda gave me her ultimatum wasn't the end, it was a beginning. It was the moment I finally chose myself, not out of selfishness, but out of honesty. I chose the possibility of real happiness over the safety of familiar unhappiness. Sarah intertwines her fingers with mine, and I feel that calm certainty I now recognize as contentment. It isn't an explosive or overwhelming emotion. It's the quiet feeling of being exactly where I'm supposed to be, with someone who truly sees me. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. "About how sometimes you have to lose something to find what you really need." Sarah smiles, squeezing my hand. "Really professor-like of you. You're influencing me in all the wrong ways." Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. I laugh and pull her closer. The sun disappears on the horizon, but I don't feel that old melancholy. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another day of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely excited to see what comes next.